welcome back to another episode of Breaking Schema. We have with us another leader in Best. This is my guy. We go way back to the MBA program here at Ross. Sheel Mohnot, welcome to the podcast, my friend. How's it going?
So happy to be here.
Man, it's glad to have
Marcus
you with
and
us.
we met the first day
First day
at Michigan.
John, we were put into like one of those early pods doing RLI during like the orientation week, and Sheel and I just had a ball. Man, we had such a blast.
Such a good time.
Good
It was
time.
such a good time.
Good times. So Sheel is the founder of Better Tomorrow Ventures. What is that? Tell us about Better Tomorrow Ventures and the work that you do.
Yeah. We are a $300 million AUM VC fund investing in fintech companies. And we partner with companies at the earliest stages. So usually when we invest, it's like 1, 2, 3 people. And the thing I love about that is more than anything else, you're investing in people. And you get to work with them to build the idea. Like venture capital is so many things. It's like, from what we do, which is inception stage investing, to, late stage stuff that really is the same sort of thing that like a hedge fund does. You're looking at numbers and spreadsheets. But what we do is super early. We're investing in people.
And how is that different than how normal companies like approach their work in the VC world?
Yeah, I think we think about ourselves as being entrepreneurs to a certain extent. And so we're a little bit more hands-on than your typical investor. And we have, for example, companies working out of our office. I think we just think about it in a way that's more symbiotic, the relationship between the founder and the investor.
Yeah. Now, how do people typically get in this line of work? Like, I got to remember you being in the investment world when we were
Yeah.
Like, how do most people get here, and how did you get here?
Yeah, great question. So there's no like traditional path into venture. There is the there are some people who go the like traditional investor route, which is like work in finance, MBA, and then get out there. But I think what ends up happening is if you look at the kind of work that we do, most of the partners are founders or operators of companies who end up in venture. For me, the path was non-traditional, but I think there's really no traditional path. So for me, it was after Ross, I went to BCG. As you mentioned, I'd split my summer between Amazon and BCG. I wasn't sure if I wanted to do tech or consulting. Ended up going to consulting. A little bit after a year into BCG, I wasn't sure it was for me, and a friend of mine from consulting was starting a company. He asked me to join him, so we had this company called Fee Fighters. It got acquired in 2012. At that point, I had a little bit of capital. I started angel investing. I loved angel investing, and the part that I loved was like obviously there's the like capital part of it, but that's not what I loved. What I loved was helping founders at the earliest stages not make the mistakes that I made, think through a problem, get on a whiteboard. That's the sort of stuff that I loved. And I ended up starting another company that got acquired in 2015. And at that point, I said, hey, I'm just going to do this full time. And so I started investing first with my own capital, and then I had a small fund around it. And then now we've grown over the years.
So 2 acquisitions. You find sort of the thing that gets you excited about the work that you do, and you decide just to double down there. What was driving the approach, the philosophy by which you would go about doing the work?
I think each time it was like, what do I find intellectually stimulating and fun? What is the thing that I'm going to be doing that I just love doing? What can I see myself doing 30 years from now? And I think I found it. Like I'm loving it. It's just such a good. I feel so fortunate that I was able to find this career, and that like the roads opened up to me in a way that they did.
Now, John, when you hear that, like a part of you got to sort of sort of shudder a little bit, right? Like to hear someone say, "I feel lucky to be able to do the thing that I love doing and I am good at." Like, shouldn't that be like the outcome? In anyone who goes to a university like Michigan, who comes from a business school like Ross, and have applied themselves in industry, like why is this such a rare thing? Like, why does Sheel say, I feel fortunate?
Well, it's a bit scary because there's some recent research done by one of the human capital consulting companies which suggests that about 85% of all Americans hate their jobs.
Mm.
So, what's funny then, Marcus, is when we hear somebody like Sheel say, I love what I do. I wake up in the morning thankful that I get to go to work. It seems so out of tune with the majority of Americans. So, frankly, it's really refreshing to hear it. And I think that we want all of our graduates from the University of Michigan to say the same thing. I love what I do.
And
There's this
so,
like trope or meme that like Monday mornings suck, and it's just like a common thing people talk about, like how much work sucks. It just doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah.
Um, there's this Japanese word ikigai. I'm sure you
oh, you
guys
froze up,
are familiar
Sheel.
with it. Do you guys know about this word? It's
It's a great. Oh, there. You froze up for a second there.
okay. I was saying this word ikigai, which is it's like a Venn diagram of
Yeah.
what you love, what the world needs, what you're good at, and what you can get paid for. And a couple of those things, by the way, I'm not sure qualify for me, but at least I found the thing that I can get paid for, and I do love it. The other
Yeah.
stuff, still, the jury's out.
Sheel, you know what's funny? I teach the Ikigai in the BA 500, which is the Intro to Business course for our one-year master's students. So
Amazing.
I love it. I think it's an amazing model. And don't sell yourself short. I think all four of those circles in the Venn diagram apply to you. Yeah,
Thank you.
the world does need fintech. Look, we can we can say, oh, do we really need more fintech? We do. We need to have more technology companies to make our world better.
Now, here's a question for you, Sheel. And knowing you, like I know you, like what gives you the audacity to be able to sort of do that? And I don't mean it in a flippant way. I really
Yeah.
mean that. Like, there's a certain level of audacity that one has to say, I'm going to pursue this route for myself. I'm going to put up my own capital to make someone else's dream come to life because that actually fills my bucket. Like talk to me a little bit about that. Like what's going on inside of you from, at least from I known you from the business school, and maybe it was before then, that sort of gives you this sense that, like, yeah, I could go a path of less traveled.
I think it's the sort of thing where like actually I have a sign up in my office that says I'll show you guys. It says I don't know if you can read that. Orville Wright did not have a pilot's license.
Mm.
And it's like you you just figure it out as you go and you kind of believe in yourself. And definitely like I did not have any right to be in this business. Like I didn't have the right experience or whatever. But if you just start doing something and you believe in yourself, you can have success.
Yeah. So I wanted to dig into this. This is really interesting to me, because I have to get asked this question as well. That, like, how'd you get into academia and in music and blah blah blah? Like, how do those things intersect? And for me, it's like, well, you just do it. What are you talking about? It's like
Exactly.
asking Michael Jordan how to slam dunk. It's like you just jump. What do you mean? Like, you just do the thing, right? So, like, can you talk to me a bit about
Exactly.
sort of how you talk to yourself, like the self talk that you go through when you're taking on a new adventure, or trying a thing that, like you said, you don't have a pilot's license to be a part of a thing. Like, what are the stories you're telling yourself?
It's just like you have to think you can't be afraid of failure. That's the main thing. Like if you're afraid of failure, you'll never do anything. And I think I've been fortunate that I was a little bit born with it, that like I'm not that afraid of failure. I know the worst thing that could happen is not that bad. Like if you try something, it doesn't work out, what's the worst that could happen? Like you're embarrassed amongst your friends. I don't know. Like it never bothered me. Um, and actually, there's this quote, another quote. Laird Hamilton, the surfer, said, "People don't want to do new things if they're going to be bad at them, or if people are going to laugh at them. So the only way to succeed is to subject yourself to failure, to be bad, to fall on your head, do it again, and try stuff you've never done in order to be the best that you can be." So I sort of live by that. Like, if you look at my resume or whatever, it looks like everything's gone well. That's not the reality. Like the reality is there's so many failures along the way, and you just can't let it get you down.
Yeah. When you are working with founders, do you look for that in them too?
For sure. Yeah, I think it's really important. There's just like so I think there are two things that I think of as super important founders. One is iterating, and so that's like trying stuff, and that's where this thing that we're talking about comes in. And you have to just keep trying stuff, and eventually stuff will work. Something will work. But there are people who just are too afraid to try, and that's when things don't work out with the founder. So I'd say now that we're on this topic, things that I think are important. So speed of iteration, what we're talking about, like trying stuff, and then tenacity. Like you have to sort of break through walls to make it happen is the other thing. Those two things I think are critical for founders.
Sheel, I love that word iteration. It reminds me of the light bulb. Like how many times and how many different filaments did he try before the light bulb actually worked? Right? Nobody
Absolutely.
remembers all the. Nobody talks about the failures. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Everybody knows the light bulb. Yeah, brilliant iteration, iterative. Yeah.
So as you think about sort of the trajectory of your career, where you are now, the success that you had with Better Tomorrow, anything about the industry in which you sit in, or the industries in which you operate, considering the different funds and different founders you invest in, what do you think the biggest disruption is afoot for you, for your business, for the categories in which you operate? What's the thing that's keeping you up at night? They're like, oh man, if this doesn't go well, if this thing does not turn the corner, we're in bad shape. Or if this thing presents itself, this is not going to be good.
Yeah, I think there have throughout my time in venture, there have been so many things that were theoretically disrupting my job. So over the course of the past 5 or 6 years, there was initially it was like crowdfunding. So like who needs a venture capitalist? There's going to be crowdfunding. Then there was ICOs. Crypto is going to solve everything. Then there was AI based investing. You don't need investors. AI will do it all. And that was before the current AI wave. Then there was DAOs, like again, decentralized organizations are the future. And then there's like revenue based financing. There's all these things that you could say are going to replace the work that we do. I think fundamentally, it's hard and maybe arrogant to say this, but I think like what we do is invest in people. And I think investing in people requires people. So I feel like I'm not worried about that per se changing so much. And I think there is always change in our industry, and we need to change with it and not just do the status quo. But what keeps me up at night is just it's not about the industry of venture capital. It's like fintech. What like is this world that I imagine, a world where technology and finance is seamless? Is that really real, or is there something different that's going to change things? And I guess the biggest thing people worry about is or think about is crypto. I have not been a huge believer in in crypto changing our day-to-day life, and so far at least I've been right. Like it's been more than a decade, and there aren't too many things in our daily life that we do with crypto. And people compare AI and crypto, and like with AI, like I'm using it so many times a day. Crypto, I'm never using it.
Yeah, Sheel, I want to do one of the business school yabbats.
Okay. Okay.
I love what you said about investing in people. Yeah, but
Uh-huh.
the idea's got to be good at the end of the day, doesn't it?
Yeah. Okay. So good question. So I'll say uh, a couple years ago, I did like a retro on my first, whatever, 5 years in investing. And I think of my top five investments, three of them were a different business than what they originally pitched me. So not an entirely different business. They were still in the same category, but they're doing something different than what they originally were. And so I think part of it is I invest so early that it's really about people. If you invest later, they're not going to change. The idea isn't, it's harder to change. But if I'm investing when it's like two people sitting around a desk, the idea can definitely change.
And
I
do you
also
think
think there's this, oh, sorry, go ahead, John.
no, just do you think that is dramatically different than the traditional VC approach?
Yeah, I think it's, you have to look at VC as being not just one thing, because it spans the gamut between investing in companies that are valued at $5 million and companies that are valued at $50 billion.
Mhm.
And, Stripe is not going to change their business model. But the people who invested in Stripe early invested because of Patrick and John being exceptional founders. And so we invest in founders is what I'd
Mm.
say.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
cool.
But there is this notion that people have that a good, I think Warren Buffett has a quote about if he could invest in a great business or a great management team, and he says a great business with an okay management team wins every time. And the stage that I invest is very different. I disagree with that. And then I actually think if you look at his investing career, he might disagree with that too. Like there's this, do you guys know the story about Mrs. B? So, okay, I love this story, so I'm gonna use a minute here to talk about it.
give
So
it to us.
there's this Belarusian immigrant in
Oh,
Omaha
you just freeze up.
named Rose Blumpkin,
It's a cliffhanger.
and she started this company called the Nebraska Furniture Mart. And Warren Buffett, I
Hold up,
think in
Shield, you
1980.
froze up. You froze
Oh
up as soon
no.
as you're about to start. All right, so you said you froze. So kick us from the
Okay.
beginning.
There's this woman who started a company called Nebraska Furniture Mart in Omaha, Nebraska. And in 1980, Warren Buffett bought a controlling stake in this business. And it was a furniture store, a single furniture store. But the reason he invested in this furniture store is he said, I would never want to go up against Rose Blumpkin. So what did he invest in? He didn't invest in a furniture store. He invested in Rose Blumpkin. And this woman is incredible. So fast forward after he invests, 10 years later, her family forces her out of the business. She's 95 years old, Belarusian immigrant, doesn't speak English that well, can't even walk that well. She gets around on a wheeled walker thing, and they kick her out of the business. What does she do? The family doesn't know anything about it. They're pissed at her. She's pissed at them. 6 months later, she opens a business across the street, basically a spite store. And at 95 years old, she opens up Mrs. B's Furniture Clearance Mart across the street from Nebraska Furniture Mart. And that is tenacity. That is a founder who will not give up, even though her family kicked her out of the business. And then eventually Warren Buffett had to acquire that business too.
Right. I mean, what's interesting in all this is as I sort of take inventory of this conversation, man, it requires a tremendous amount of belief in the founders and what the founders could do as far as their potential in the space. Like your business is predicated on the belief that fintech will be a thing, right?
That's right.
And then there's belief in yourself, i.e., you know, I don't have a license to do this, but I'm gonna do it anyway, fearlessly. Like, is that something you talk about? Is that a part of your lexicon? Like this idea of what do we believe?
Yeah, I think we think about it, and it's really simple. We think about what we believe. What we believe is finance is too hard for everyday
The
Americans
cliffhangers.
and
The
in the
cliffhangers.
globe, not just individuals, but also.
Hold up, you
Did we
froze one
freeze
second.
again?
You said it's really simple, and then you froze.
Oh no. Okay, hold
So
on.
many
Let
cliffhangers.
me let me let me check. I might switch internet
Okay, all right, all good. We'll hold
real
on.
quick.
All good. No worries. We can edit it. No worries.
Forget fintech investment. Start investing in some internet technology there, bud.
Yeah, helpful. Yeah, and hopefully taking some like some time markers, Xander, so we can know where the edits need to be. Cool, cool. John, as far as the disruptor, you've oh yeah, he's back. All right, so you about to say it's really simple.
I'm just checking. I'm just checking this connection too to make sure. Okay, we're good.
Yep.
Okay. So
So
the
I was asking
question
you about like
was,
I was asking you like is because it sounds like to me it's this repetition about like belief, whether it's implicit or explicit, right? We
yep.
believe in the founder, we believe in this space, we believe that this is going to be a part of our daily living, right? This integration between technology and finance. So fintech is where you sit. I believe in myself that like I could spend my own money to make this thing happen. There's so much belief. Is that a part of like your lexicon at all?
Yeah, I think there are some simple things we believe. One is finance is too hard for people. Like there's so many things that you have to do, you have to figure out. Even a an MBA grad has no idea if they should just put all their money in the S&P or should they hire somebody like you have no idea. I don't know. This is what I do for a profession. I'm not sure what's better. Um, and then if you run a small business, I have one of my best friends owns some restaurants in San Francisco, and so I sit with him in his office sometimes, and I see the stuff he does. He's like exporting something, importing it into QuickBooks, importing it into his payroll. Like every Friday, he's doing this. Why? It should all be integrated. Everything should be done for you. And technology offers that solution, but we haven't gotten there yet. So I believe that the future is easier, is making finance easier. Now, how we get there, I'm not exactly sure, but I believe in that future. And that future is a better tomorrow. Like why we called the fund Better Tomorrow. It's like we're investing in a better tomorrow, better future for everyone around us. And then there's a secondary meaning, which is we want to improve ourselves. Like we want to get better. Next time I do this, it should be better than the last time I did it.
Yeah, I mean, we John and I are big fans of Simon Sinek, and the
Mm-hmm.
idea of like brands having a conviction. Instead of saying a why, we call it a conviction because people stand on it, right? You don't just have it, but you act on it. Like you believe in it, and then therefore it's manifested in what you do, right? And John, like as you hear Sheil talk about the beliefs that the organization have and the way it's manifested, like that, like we would call that like a really good strategy for a business. Yeah.
Yeah, and I really like this idea of beliefs. I'll add a little caveat, which is the beliefs drive the behaviors. One of
Mm.
Sheel, one of our colleagues here at Michigan, developed a model. It's called the six box, and the interesting thing about it is before it was the six box, it was the four box. And she didn't have the piece of the belief in there. And after iterating on the model and teasing it out and testing it out in the real world, she realized that people will not change their behaviors until their beliefs have changed. So I think the
Totally.
beliefs is a super powerful concept here if you want to drive behavioral change.
Yeah, belief drives us to action, not the other way around.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's true and very applicable to our companies. Like that's you're working on the belief, the belief of the consumer.
Yeah, yeah, I like that belief, like using belief as a disruptive model, right? And not only in the way you run your business, but as you as a practitioner. Now, with this in mind, what have been like the advice that you would normally hear people be given that are in the VC world? Like, what's like the traditional advice that you hear? If you go into the VC world, like, here's how you should approach your career. Here's how you should approach your work. What's the typical advice that are given to folks?
It's interesting. I think that it's relatively small, and there's so many different ways to get into it that there's no one right way. I would say the things that people say are read as much as you can from people who are good at this. What the nice thing is, there's a lot of content out there from some of the greats. It's and then there's a few different ways to go about it. There's one is like you can be extroverted, meet everyone, network. The idea is you meet everyone, you distill the ideas and figure out what's great and invest in the best companies. And then there are other people who are total introverts who just like don't go out there. I'm an extrovert, so I'm the guy who's out there all the time meeting people. I'm trying to think of other things that people think about or advice that people give. I can't think of anything that's like nothing's coming to mind.
Which tees up the next question. What advice would you give to people who are trying to not only disrupt their industry, disrupt the normal path in which they pursue their career? What's the advice you give the listeners here who are either current students in an MBA program, undergraduate program, or recent graduates that are trying to set a path for themselves that are as successful and lucrative as yours has been?
I think the main thing is don't be afraid to try stuff. Like, especially if you're, the people, the undergrads, grads, students, like there's so much fear of failure, and it's hard for that not to happen. And there's so much of like, when you're in the MBA program, it's like, you want to get a particular type of job to have a particular type of success and, get on that classics, ladder or whatever. But I think there are many different forms of success and many different paths to get there. And if you have an idea, I think rather than going to work somewhere and then going somewhere else and going somewhere else to execute that idea, why not just go and try to solve that problem right now?
Which reinforces, Marcus, what you're saying, belief as the disruptor. So believe in yourself, believe in the idea, believe in the opportunity. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think that's really powerful. Now look, Sheel, I know you're a busy man. You're running a hundreds of $1 million fund. You got a lot of stuff going on, but there's no way I can not ask you this question because it's just, to me, I think it's the coolest thing. And I was telling John, it's the most Sheel thing ever. Your wedding, talk about disrupting things. This man disrupted the traditional wedding institution, right?
Yeah.
Your wedding, sponsored by Taco Bell. First of all, what does that mean? How does that happen? And how does that manifest? There's no way I can not ask you this question and get you on the record.
Marcus, it was an open bar, but in this case, it was an open taco bar.
Okay, so yes, you're absolutely right. My wedding was sponsored by Taco Bell. How did this happen? So I'm a Taco Bell fan, and people know this about me, like on Twitter or whatever. So a year and a half ago, Taco Bell had this competition. I had just gotten engaged. I got engaged in August 22, and Taco Bell had this competition that they wanted to sponsor one couple's wedding in this Taco Bell metaverse. And I'm not like a metaverse guy or metaverse believer, but when I saw this, people kept forwarding it to me like, hey, this is you, man, this is you. And I brought it up with my now wife, my then fiance, and I said, hey, there's this like silly competition. I was like thinking about how to bring it up to her because I knew this was not something that was like she would love to do. So I brought it up to her and I was like, hey, wouldn't it be fun if we just like applied to this thing? You had to make a 2-minute video. And we were on a road trip at the time. We were in like a 5-hour drive, and I brought it up to her and I was like, let's just come up with something and just record it on the phone and send it over to them. So we did. Well, what we agreed on was like it'd be fun to make a 2-minute video. Like, what's the harm? So we make the 2-minute video, and then it was like we're not going to submit it. and then if we do submit it, we're not going to win, and if we do win, we're not going to do it. So it was like there's many steps in between. So we submit, and then a month later, at Taco Bell is DMing me on Instagram. They're like, hey, check your email, and it had gone to my spam because I have all Taco Bell emails going to my spam. And then, so they're like, hey, you won. And so we're like, hey, we thought about it, and actually, I don't think this is right for us. So then they say, will you just get on a Zoom call with us for 30 minutes and we'll try to convince you? And I was like, sure, let's get on a Zoom call. So we get on a Zoom call, and they've done all this work. And they're like, here's the idea, the concept we have for you guys. It's going to be your wedding, but just sponsored by us. And anyway, eventually, like, they say the other magic words, which are, and you're going to be part of the Taco Bell family for life. And I was like, I don't know what that means, but I want that. So I'm like kicking my fiance under the desk, and I'm like, yeah, let's do this. So anyway, eventually we do it, and it took. So they built this Indian wedding in this metaverse. It was actually really cool. We had we got to choose our officiant, and we had Cal Penn. I don't know if you know who that guy is. He's
It's so
so
good.
he was awesome. It was a really fun time, and then we had so that was in this metaverse. People were on their computer or whatever, and then we had a huge after party. We rented out this Taco Bell. There's a Taco Bell, beautiful Taco Bell on the beach here in the Bay Area, and we had this beautiful party there. But it was actually only one of like 9 wedding events we had last year. It was completely crazy.
That is the most Sheel thing ever. Man, you are one of a kind, my friend, and I'm so grateful for you sharing your brilliance. And honestly, man, just kind of sort of opening up a window into a world that typically is opaque, and giving us a sense of sort of like, again, like kind of what you talk, like the kind of self-talk that goes on that's helping guide these decisions. Because to some, it looks sort of haphazard.
Totally.
But when you see it through the lens of like, no, I just believe it's possible, and if it doesn't happen, what's the worst that can happen? Like that operating system, I think it puts everything into a context where you go, oh yeah, and if nothing else, it actually becomes kind of contagious. The people go, yeah, why aren't I doing it? And the advice that you're giving the our listeners, I think it's powerful, and hopefully people take it to heart.
Absolutely.
Well, John, you want to wrap us up with some words of wisdom, with your sage knowledge, my friend?
Wow. I want to come back to that word belief. I think what you just summarized there, Marcus, is all about belief as the disruptor. I'll say it again, belief in yourself, belief in the idea, belief in the opportunity. But there was more, what you just said, Marcus, believing that if I fail, this is not the end of the world. Right? So beliefs the beliefs putting some kind of constraints, but also reducing the constraints or removing the constraints, super powerful in terms of disrupting your industry, disrupting your life. So, yeah, congratulations. This is amazing. We love seeing our alumni of Michigan Ross doing so well. Congratulations on the wedding. But by the way, what does part of the Taco Bell family for life really mean? Don't leave us hanging, dude.
Yeah. Okay. I'm still figuring it out. I mean, they send me a lot of swag stuff on my birthday. They invited us to something in Vegas next month. I don't even know what it is. So they are fulfilling that promise. We do feel like part of the family.
That's awesome. Sheel,
We
man,
sorry, actually, I was gonna say we recorded a podcast with the CEO of Taco Bell. And during the podcast, I asked him for a black card, like unlimited Taco Bell. And one thing I found out is being part of the Taco Bell family does not mean you get unlimited Taco Bell. He did not give me a black card.
That's unfortunate. Man,
Yeah.
thank you so very much to be with us. I'm so super grateful for you, man. And honestly, dude, super proud of the work that you've done. Like I said, since
Thank you.
I've
Appreciate
known
that.
you, you've always been one to make things happen that seem impossible, but do it in a way that feels almost effortless. And kind of getting a peek behind the curtain on sort of what was going on inside of there to make that happen. makes me even more proud of you, dude. Truly.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, man.
I
Yeah.
mean, obviously, vice versa too. This is super fun, guys. Thanks for having me out.
Absolutely. And that wraps another episode of Breaking Schemas. We're super grateful for you to be with us. Until then, go blue.